Most men treat no contact like a psychological cheat code, a tactical silence designed to trick a woman into missing them. They think if they just hold their breath long enough, she'll eventually get scared and come running back. But no contact isn't a game of chicken. It is a mirror that reflects the reality of the relationship. Right now, you are likely stuck in a loop, staring at your phone as if it's a slot machine that's about to pay out. You are overanalyzing every maybe she ever gave you and replaying the last argument like it's a riddle you can solve if you just think about it hard enough. You're operating from a place of deep-seated fear, the fear that if you stop making noise, you will simply cease to exist in her mind. Here is the hard truth your anxiety won't tell you. You cannot talk someone into valuing you. If you had a real presence in her life, silence doesn't cause amnesia. It causes an audit. When you were constantly available, chasing, and explaining yourself, you were acting as an emotional vending machine. She knew exactly which buttons to push to get a reaction, which made you manageable and predictable. By stepping away, you remove that safety net. You stop being a source she can tap for validation whenever she feels bored or guilty. This absence is what forces her to look into the mirror and face the consequences of her choices. Ultimately, this period of silence isn't about winning her back. It's about discovering what was actually there. When the noise stops, the truth comes out. You get to see if the connection was based on genuine respect and mutual value, or if it was just a matter of convenience and ego for her. By refusing to reach out, you are finally allowing the weight of the breakup to land on her shoulders. You are showing her what life actually looks like without you in it, and that is the only way she, or you, will ever realize what was truly lost. The reason your presence was taken for granted is that you became the invisible infrastructure of her emotional life. You were doing all the heavy lifting, providing the stability, the constant second chances, and the reliable comfort without requiring her to earn any of it. To her, you weren't a partner to be honored. You were a safety net that caught her every time she acted out. Because you were always there to smooth things over, she never had to face the natural consequences of her behavior. You essentially subsidized her bad choices with your own emotional labor, and in doing so, you taught her that your value was infinite and your departure was impossible. Every time you reached out or broke your own silence in the past, you sent a very specific message. Your boundaries are negotiable, and your self-respect is just a costume. You showed her that no matter how much she disrespected you, your loneliness would eventually win out and bring you crawling back. This created a dynamic where she didn't have to change because she knew your standards were flexible. Breaking no contact now would only reinforce that old lesson. It tells her that her disrespect isn't an urgent problem and that she can still access the best parts of you without having to offer anything in return. You become a man who talks about respect but doesn't actually require it. Choosing to stay silent is not about being petty or trying to win a breakup. It is an act of self-governance and true emotional leadership. It is the moment you stop being a passenger in your own life and start setting the terms. By removing yourself entirely, you are refusing to participate in a connection that requires you to abandon your own dignity just to keep the peace. You aren't punishing her by disappearing. You are simply honoring yourself. You are making the executive decision that your energy is a high-value resource, and it is no longer available to someone who treats it like a common commodity. Regret isn't a switch that flips overnight. It's a slow psychological breakdown that happens in specific, predictable stages. When you understand this timeline, you stop being a victim of your own anxiety and start seeing her actions for what they actually are. It begins with stage 1, relief. This is the hardest part for you to swallow because while you're hurting, she feels like a weight has been lifted. The arguments have stopped, the pressure is gone, and she's telling herself a story where she is the hero who finally found peace. Don't let this panic you. Relief isn't proof that she doesn't care. It's just the temporary anesthesia people feel when they walk away from something that required effort. It has a very short shelf life because relief only removes pressure. It doesn't fill the void where your presence used to be. As the silence stretches on, she enters stage 2, curiosity. This is where the pattern is officially broken. Up until now, she had the certainty of your obsession. She knew exactly where you were and how much you cared. But when you don't chase, her brain starts to itch. She begins wondering if you're angry, if you're moving on, or if she completely misjudged your value. This curiosity is the true birth of loss, because for the first time, she doesn't have the data to control the narrative. To distract herself from this growing unease, she moves into stage 3, validation hunting. This is the rebound or party phase where she looks for quick ego boosts from social media likes, friends, or new male attention. These are just sugar hits. They provide a temporary spike in dopamine, but leave her feeling empty because these new sources want her body or her attention. But they don't offer the security or the weight that you did. Once the cheap validation fails to satisfy her, she hits stage 4, the memory attack. This is a brutal psychological shift where her brain stops filtering out the good times and starts replaying your highlights on a loop. She forgets the fights and starts craving your warmth and consistency. You must stay disciplined here, because if you reach out now, you kill the process. You go from being a missed man to just an accessible one. If you remain silent, she is forced into stage 5, internal confrontation. Without your reactions to fight against, she has no target for her blame. She is forced to sit in the quiet and look at her own behavior, how she pushed you away and how she took you for granted. This consequence clarity is the only place where real change can happen. The final descent begins with stage 6, fear of replacement. She realizes you aren't just giving her space, you're actually building a life that doesn't include her. You've developed your own gravity, and the thought of another woman receiving the loyalty and strength she threw away becomes an unbearable sting to her ego. Finally, this leads to stage 7, the test message. This is the breadcrumbs phase, a random text, a meme, or a hope you're well message. You need to understand that this usually isn't an apology. It's a temperature check to see if she still has access to you on her terms. If you fold instantly and pour your heart out, you prove that nothing has changed, the regret vanishes, and the power dynamic resets exactly where it was before. The ultimate objective of no contact is not to manipulate her emotions, but to facilitate your own recovery. If you are sitting in a dark room counting the days until she calls, you aren't in no contact, you're just waiting. A man who truly reclaims his power doesn't use silence as a loud, desperate protest or a way to get back at her. Instead, he moves cleanly and decisively out of her reach. He stops being a spectator of her life and starts being the architect of his own. This shift happens when you replace the time you spent obsessing over her with a rigid structure built on training your body, sharpening your mind, and deepening your connection to your purpose and your brothers. You stop chasing closure through conversations she isn't ready to have, and you start creating it yourself by becoming a man who no longer requires her approval to feel whole. Reclaiming the archetype of a grounded man means that your internal state is no longer tethered to her external actions. When you do this right, you develop a sense of gravity, a self-led life that continues to move forward regardless of who stays or goes. This transformation changes how you handle any future contact. If she eventually reaches out, you don't instantly melt or revert to the version of you that was desperate for a crumb of affection. You don't get excited just because her name popped up on a screen. Instead, you operate from a place of high-level assessment. You look at the situation with cold, clear eyes and ask yourself, does she come with genuine accountability and a desire for peace, or is she just bringing the same old chaos wrapped in a different package? Ultimately, this is about reaching a level of self-respect where you are no longer winning her back because you realized you never actually lost yourself. You become the man with the standards, the one who evaluates whether she is still a fit for the kingdom you've built in her absence. If she returns with excuses or games, you exit the conversation without anger, because your value isn't up for debate. By choosing yourself first, you ensure that if you ever do decide to let a woman back into your life, it's a conscious choice made from a position of strength, not a desperate reaction born out of loneliness. You become a man who is complete on his own, which makes you the most dangerous and attractive version of yourself possible. Motivation is nothing more than temporary emotional fuel. Without a concrete direction, it's just a fire that eventually burns you out. To truly move forward, you have to treat your obsession like a chemical addiction and stop feeding the habit. This begins by killing the digital ghost that haunts your daily life. Every time you check her social media, look at her active status, or reread old text messages like they are sacred scripture, you are injecting a fresh dose of the very drug that keeps you weak. You are keeping a version of her alive in your head that no longer exists in reality. You need to go digitally dark, not to be petty, but to give your brain the literal space it needs to rewire itself and break the cycle of constant monitoring. While you clean up your environment, you must also earn your internal stability through physical exertion. You cannot think your way out of a broken heart, but you can sweat your way into a quiet mind. When the anxiety starts to crawl up your throat and you feel the urge to negotiate your self-respect, get to the gym or get on the trail. Train your body with such intensity that your mind has no choice but to stop spiraling. You are looking to achieve a state of neurological calm that only comes from discipline and physical exhaustion. By pushing your body, you prove to yourself that you are capable of enduring discomfort without folding, which is the foundation of emotional resilience. Your greatest enemy during this transition is empty time, because an empty day is a prison where your thoughts are the guards. To escape, you must lock your schedule with absolute precision. Every hour of your day needs a job, whether it's work, skill building, or connecting with your community. When you have a purposeful path to follow, she becomes a background thought rather than a mental cell. This leads into the practice of urge surfing. When that wave of loneliness hits, and it will, don't fight it and don't give in. Simply acknowledge it and commit to delaying any reaction for at least 1 hour. You'll find that the emergency feeling of needing to text her is actually just a withdrawal symptom. You aren't dying, you are simply detoxing from a toxic dynamic, and every hour you stay silent is a win for the man you are becoming. The ultimate shift in your mindset happens when you stop asking, will she regret it? And start realizing that if she never does, you've actually won. If she never feels the weight of your absence, it simply proves she never possessed the capacity to value what you offered. And being ignored by someone like that is the fastest path to total freedom. You have to stop viewing no contact as a remote control for her emotions and start seeing it as a reclamation project for your soul. You are officially done auditioning for basic human respect or performing like a circus act just to keep her interested. When you stop trying to influence her feelings, you finally regain control over your own, shifting from a state of desperate reaction to one of absolute self-possession. To truly make this shift, you must kill the part of you that needs her to confirm your worth. If your value depends on her text message or her apology, you are still a prisoner to her whims. You need to become the man who lives by a much harder, more stable code. I don't chase what runs, I build what stays. This is the line in the sand between being a boy who is ruled by his impulses and a man who is ruled by his mission. A boy interprets silence as a threat to his existence, but a man understands that his presence is a privilege that must be earned and maintained. Your life is no longer a satellite orbiting her world. Your life is a kingdom you are actively building with or without her. In this new reality, your mission isn't her. Your mission is your purpose, your health, your wealth, and your peace. You are no longer looking for a woman to complete you. You are looking for a woman who is capable of aligning with the high standard life you have already created. If she isn't willing or able to meet that standard, she isn't a tragedy to be mourned. She's just someone who isn't invited in. This is the final evolution of the process. You become the standard. You aren't waiting for her to choose you. You are living a life so grounded and powerful that the only people who get to stay are those who bring peace and value to your gates.